Many and many a year ago, and a lot of months, weeks, and days too, there was a fine German town called Lower Dumler. Why the town had this name puzzled everyone, because no higher or middle Dumler existed. There was only one. However, none of this really mattered since Lower Dumler owned its reputation in extreme wealth. Fabulous gold, silver, and copper deposits lay within the town's precedence, and the fact that it was a coastal port in addition only made the spread of riches even greater. Naturally, the inhabitants of this town took considerable pride in themselves. They ate the finest food, lived in the grandest houses, and wore the most fabulous and expensive clothes. They wore beautiful dresses of satin and silk, as well as bodices encrusted with precious jewels. The women wore nice things too. Now, it may be imagined that men of Lower Dumler spared no expense as far as their pleasures were concerned. Indeed, they were famous throughout the land for being lusty and lascivious. Despite having nice, decent wives, these men would ravish in any fair maiden who traveled through the town. The men also liked to parade their mistress in the streets. Some boasted up to having up to 5 or 6 at one time. Yet even these fleshy enjoyments began to pale as the years went by and the men looked at even more outrageous ways to stimulate their appetites. Indeed, just as they were getting very bored with their wives and mistresses, a strange man suddenly appeared in Lower Dumler. He said, "I've got a special trope of girls, the best-looking ones in the whole of Europe. They have entertained kinds, czars, emperors, and no audience has been disappointed yet." Naturally, all the men in the town urged the stranger to put on his own show for their own delegations. At first, the newcomer was disinclined to bring his girls to such a comparatively small place. "They have toured the grandest cities, and I doubt that it would be worth my while to send for them as they are currently performing far away," the man said. However, the men of Lower Dumler were not to be fobbed off so easily. They all gathered together in the town hall and made larger and larger offers of money to the stranger if he would only bring his superlatively gorgeous women. Finally, a fee of 10,000 guilders was agreed upon, with half the money to be paid in advance. After the contract was signed, one may imagine how worked up every man became. So luscious did the mysterious stranger make his women sound that the townsmen paid less attention and respect to their existing wives and mistresses. The latter made bitter complaints about such neglectful treatment, but absolutely nothing could be done about it. At last, the great day, or rather night, finally arrived, and all the men of the town salivated with lewd appreciation. Their fevered imaginations worked overtime as they anticipated the veritable cornucopia of lewd and saucy pleasures. To add insult to injury, none of the women of Lower Dumler were permitted to attend the show, since it was deemed injurious to their more moral welfare. They all had to stay at home and look after their children instead. "We really cannot allow our women access to these sights and spectacles," said the town mayor. "Of course, with our stronger characters and constitutions, it is quite a different matter," the mayor added. And so the show began. The female performers called themselves the Sirens, after those female creatures of Greek mythology who could lure unsuspecting sailors to their watery graves. However, the men of the town soon found a far greater entertainment than mere singing. Those sirens put on the most provocative dancing displays ever seen by the eyes of mortal men. Never was such heavenly beauty ever seen before. The show began 2 hours before midnight and was indeed scheduled to continue until the very stroke of the witching hour. Yet, after a mere 10 minutes, every man of the Lower Dumler felt like he had already been given more than the value of their money, and they became ever more excited as the female performers continued. They yelled and whooped and cried out their sexual stimulations. A mere 5 minutes before midnight, several of the Sirens actually went down to mingle with their enraptured audience. They teasingly tied the men's arms to their plush chairs and even placed soft, silky cushions under their heads for added comfort. These happy minglings heated the blood of the men even more, and some passed out with the sheer rampant pleasure. Oh, dear listener, what a mercy for those happy men. All the rest suddenly discovered that their bindings and cushions prevented them from moving. At the same time, the Sirens began to change their forms. Just as the last chime of midnight sounded, now the naughty men of Lower Dumler saw the fanged teeth, red hypnotic eyes, and the claw-like talons of these Sirens, suddenly and hideously revealed as ravenous female vampires. They fell upon the men as one terrible body and proceeded to devour every morsel of flesh, muscle, and sinew. Not a single scrap of fatty skin, nor one single drop of blood was left, as every bone was picked clean. Every man was eaten alive. As for the town's womenfolk, they were not too heartbroken, since the stranger who had bought his Sirens had additional and secretly arranged for them to put a double life insurance policy on their errant men and husbands. He himself turned out to be a qualified insurance broker by the name of Dr. Acula, and is believed to have secured a commission of 10% on the deal. Moral of the story is, uncontrolled desires may end up consuming those who possess them.